You're listening to another episode of the Just Go Bike podcast, powered by RAGBRAI. This is the award-winning podcast where we are all about the culture of cycling, just for the fun of it. Your hosts are Murph from the Murphology podcast and AP from Parrot Talk. With tales from all over the nation, come for the bikes, stay for the fun, and leave with a smile. And now here is Murph.
Hey, that's me.
And AP.
Hey, that's me.
Well, hey there, AP.
Hey, Murph. How are ya?
I am fabulous. I am having trouble understanding that we are just a few weeks away from RAGBRAI LII.
It's absolutely wild. It's with the calendar this year in 2025, it is the absolute earliest that RAGBRAI can possibly be. So we leave for RAGBRAI on the 18th.
Oh my gosh.
I know. And it's
Mind-blowing.
now July, so it's just right around the corner. And you know what? I'm really excited this year.
Yeah, I am too. But
Yeah.
I also feel like it was just yesterday then that it was like February and I was all like, why is it so cold? Let's just make it be July now.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to visit Estherville without remembering just how cold it was during our town visit, even though it's totally normal temperatures most of the year. But
Yeah.
gosh,
Well,
it was
like
freezing.
negative 17, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah. And just scraping the car, it was
Gosh.
a feat of endurance. But
gosh,
you know what? It's going to be all that much more enjoyable when we go there in just a couple weeks. I'm sure the weather will be perfect.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And
yeah.
if it's anything like this past weekend, I was on a bike adventure and it was in the 90s and just steamy hot.
Ooh. Yeah. So let's talk about your bike adventure a little bit. Tell us, ever the listeners, about what it was, where you went and what it was like.
It's actually a nice segue into today's episode, which is about Minnesota and our, RAGBRAI going into Minnesota. But I was with a small group of friends and we did our own ride. We called it the Tri-State Bagger Tour.
Ooh.
And we started in Decorah, Iowa, and then went up into Minnesota to Lanesboro, which I'm sure, well, you'll hear about it in a minute, but it's part of the Root River Trail System.
Ooh, cool.
And then over to La Crosse, Wisconsin, and then eventually back to Decorah. And let me tell you, the Tri-State Tour was not flat.
I bet not.
And when we're all carrying all of our camp gear, our clothing, our food, everything on our bikes. So, it was heavy and hot. And also we had some really, some intense rainstorms as well. So I got to experience all of it by bicycle.
Oh my God. Well, and that's part of the adventure. When you're bagging it, you're going to have all the elements and hopefully all the adventures as well.
Yeah. And that's what makes the, talking about it in the future. Like if we just were like, yeah, it was fun, end of story. But no. I want to tell you that we had to bushwhack our way through not 5, but 9 downed trees on the trail.
Wow.
So, and I have
Wow.
the scratches on my legs to prove it. But no poison ivy, because one of the guys biking with us is an arborist. And, an arborist is all about trees, but when you're in the world of trees, you also know a lot about plants. So he kept us far away from poison ivy, poison oak, all that good stuff.
Oh, very good. Wow. What an adventure. And just a nice way to kick off it was almost July when you were riding it, but
Yeah.
the middle of your bike season, the heart of the bike season. So
Yeah. Any highlights from your weekend?
Nothing as good as that. I did a lot of gardening because I'm about to leave my garden for about 10 days. So I'm getting it set up for success. We're almost to the point where we can have garlic. So the garlic is almost ready and everything else is just sort of kicking off. I don't know if I've mentioned on the podcast that this year my for fun plant is the loofah plant, which will grow like a loofah sponge by the end of it, believe it or not. So I've got my very first loofah plant fruit setting.
Wait, you can grow that in Iowa?
You can. It has been kind of difficult, but you can grow it, and it looks like a big, kind of a fat cucumber, and then you dry it, and then the inside is a sponge-like material that you can use in the shower.
Wow.
So,
Well.
yeah, stay tuned for more on that. So, it's been a great weekend. It was beautiful, beautiful weather. I had just a nice time just being outside, and I did do a very short bike ride to keep my Zwift streak alive. So don't worry about that. we're still good to go on the streak. So I need that little pocket squirrel.
That's right. Yeah. I do need to give a quick shout out. Here in my community where I live in Cedar Rapids, there was a podcast fan that was talking to a friend of mine. So I want to give a shout out to Lisa White and also her friend Shar, who were like, oh my gosh, I listened to that podcast. Yay. So thanks, ladies, for listening. And hopefully we will see you at our booth on RAGBRAI.
I also want to do a quick shout out to someone who's also named Andrea, who sent us both a great podcast recommendation to our inbox at justgobikepodcast@gmail.com. So a great interview suggestion, as well as a suggestion for a little coin holder for our challenge coins.
Yes.
So hopefully we can come through with something cool on the ride so that you guys can take a gander at our sweet challenge coin collection.
Well, here we are in July, as we mentioned earlier, and here in Iowa, a new law has gone into effect. Should we talk about it?
Yeah, just to kind of briefly recap what we're talking about, the hands-free driving law went into effect on July 1st. So what you need to know about that is while you're driving, you can't hold a phone in any way. It's illegal to hold your phone, and it's illegal to scroll, type, or interact with that phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're not supposed to even text, dial, use your phone unless it's in hands-free or voice activation mode. And I would guess most newer cars have that feature anyway. And if it's something that like you have to really change your habits because of this law, it's probably a good thing. You probably need to change your ways.
Because if you look down even for an instant to your phone, that's time that you're not looking at the road and you're not driving safely. So more than enough time to cause a serious accident. I know my car is too old to have any of the voice activated features that a newer car would have, but I have a little doohickey that I can plug into my air vent that will hold my phone and take care of business that way. So makes it a little bit easy. That I suggest the doohickey I got from Amazon. I don't know the technical name, but if you need one of those, but
all right. Yeah. We have to give thanks to Iowa Bicycle Coalition and the executive director, Luke Hoffman. And I wanted to read just a part of a quote to kind of talk about his thoughts on getting this law passed. But he said, passage of the hands-free law is a fundamental leap forward for public safety in our state. The law will make cyclists and pedestrians safer by tamping down on distracted driving, which is the primary cause of incidents where cyclists are hit and killed on our roadways. Also, the law more broadly protects everyone on our shared roadways, since the vast majority of distracted driving incidents involve driver-on-driver crashes. So, so hopefully people stop doing the distracted driving. But on top of that, if there is an accident and they are caught on their phone, I think there's going to be a lot stronger penalties because of it. Yeah,
it's nice to have additional protections as a cyclist in Iowa. So thanks to Luke and the IBC for that.
Yep. And so, most of us that are cyclists are also motorists. So keep that in mind that that law is now in effect. So put that phone away and focus on your driving.
Yeah. All right. So shall we get to today's episode?
Yes. This is going to be a good one because history in the making. First time ever, we are leaving the state of Iowa and venturing into another state.
That's right. So today's episode is all about our northern neighbor, Minnesota. And to kick off our little topic, I thought we could give a couple of fun facts about Brown Park, which is our quote unquote town in Minnesota where we're going to be stopping.
And so, right before we turn into Brown Park, that's where AP and I did a little photo shoot of a cornfield. So I hope that I can go back and get an update of the crop report, because at that point it wasn't, I think I was laying on the ground, wasn't I? And the corn wasn't even above me. And I bet you now that corn is well over 6-7 feet.
Yeah. I read somewhere that corn's growing at about 1 inch a day right now. So I'm sure it's taller.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm sure it's taller than you probably by this point. So
okay, well that doesn't take much.
I wasn't going to say it. All right. So Brown Park is a 15-acre park. It is beautiful, and that's something that I can say since we visited there recently. It's located in Jackson County between Loon Lake and Pearl Lake, and there's also a creek running in between. So it is the land of 10,000 lakes up north.
Yeah. And they do have both biking trails, hiking trails. They also have camping, whether it's primitive camping, tent camping, or bring your RV type camping. So it's definitely a place, after RAGBRAI to maybe bring the family back for a little adventure.
Ooh, I'd love that. Yeah. The last fun fact is one that maybe is my favorite. It's that this area was surveyed by the Minnesota Historical Society, and it's believed to have been inhabited during the woodland cultural period, which dates back to 200 BC.
Whoa.
That's crazy. I mean, imagine. That's such a long time for the area to have been inhabited, but you can see why, because it has so many awesome natural resources like water, fishing, ability to grow crops, stuff like that.
Yeah. So on the pod today, we have 3 different interviews. Do you want me to tell you about them?
Yes, please.
Okay. So first off, we have Jeremy Bartosh, and he is the Jackson County Park Supervisor. So he's going to give us some of the scoop about Brown Park specifically. Then we have Randolph Briley, and he's the Deputy Director of Outdoor Recreation at Explore Minnesota. I would highly recommend checking out Explore Minnesota, the website. It's pretty cool. He's also a fellow podcaster of an outdoor theme pod called Explore Minnesota More.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And then last we have Erik Noonan, and he's kind of like the Minnesota version of the Iowa Bicycle Coalition. He's communications manager at Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota. They also call themselves Bike MN. And he hopes to ride across the border from Iowa to Minnesota with Luke Hoffman, who is the executive director of the Iowa Bike Coalition, during RAGBRAI. So if the worlds can align, hopefully I'll be there around the same time and I can get some good photos of, Iowa and Minnesota mixing together on multiple levels.
That's cool. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
This is such a neat episode, not only to have done and to have interviewed these really neat people, but to just be able to have the opportunity to ride into Minnesota and to have this premise at all. So I'm so excited to get to learn a little bit more about our neighbors to the north.
All right, well, let's get to it.
We will be right back.
At First Form, they're more than just supplements. They're built for performance, driven by purpose, and proud to fuel the RAGBRAI journey.
First Form helps real people earn real long-term results on the bike and beyond.
From clean energy to high-protein snacks that actually fuel you, they're here to keep you moving, recovering, and riding strong.
Come find the First Form team out on the route. Let's crush RAGBRAI together.
Now, back to the show.
Well, a very warm welcome to Jeremy Bartosh, who is the park supervisor in the great state of Minnesota. Hello, Jeremy.
Hey, good afternoon.
This is great and, a little bit strange for me to be talking about biking in Minnesota because, this podcast is all about RAGBRAI. But, you have to live under a rock if you don't know that RAGBRAI is going to be touching into Minnesota this year.
Yeah, it's been out now for well over a couple months, and so they're doing a pretty good job of getting the word out, and this might people need to take advantage of this opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, this is making history of us coming as an entire entity called RAGBRAI into Minnesota. So it's definitely it's going to be cool, and that's why we have you all on the podcast today. But before we get into it, will you tell listeners where you live, and I don't know if there's a particular place you'd highly recommend people go to bike?
Sure. I live in the northwest part of Jackson County. Heron Lake, Minnesota, and I work out at the Public Works Department as their Jackson County's park supervisor in parks and trails.
Okay. And is Jackson County the actual county that we come into when we ride in and out?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yes. Bikers will be entering Minnesota, and they'll have the experience of traveling not just up to Brown Park, which the event is going to partake in a little bit, but have a chance to see some of our other campgrounds along the way.
And, I was there in early June, and let me tell you, it was beautiful and, so many different colors of green. So I'm excited to see as vegetation and crops are growing, what it looks like at the end of July. So, like I said, history-making day when RAGBRAI comes to Minnesota, and Brown Park is going to be our destination. So can you give us a bit about Brown Park, whatever you want to share with us?
Sure. Brown Park is actually, I don't know, a lot of people will maybe know this, but it's actually two parks. We've got a north part and we've got a south part, and most of the activities are going to be held in the southern one. And it's kind of about 16 acres, and we have a shelter house and a large expanded area, and on that we've got 5 camper cabins that we rent out, as well as 18 RV spots. It's kind of sandwiched in between 2 Minnesota lakes. And so there'll be an opportunity to see them, Pearl Lake and Loon Lake.
And I believe AP and I dipped our tires in Pearl Lake. So we created our very own Minnesota dip site. But I think that all of you, it may not be you specifically, Jeremy, but the folks in Minnesota are setting up a dip site for all riders.
That is correct. Yes, there'll be an opportunity to experience that as well as many more opportunities, and so we're looking forward to grabbing your camera, taking your picture, and then you'll have one of those memories.
For sure. And so we get to spend, half a day or a couple of hours in Brown Park, but I'm guessing as park supervisor, you get to spend a little bit more time in either Brown Park or many parks. So what's it like being park supervisor?
Well, yeah, it's a very enjoyable position. I kind of plan and oversee, the operation, within the county. The county has just over 200 acres of parkland. And of that, we've got 5 park/campground facilities. And the RAGBRAI riders that will be coming through our area that Monday, July 21st, we'll definitely see a couple of them in person, and there's 2 that are very close vicinity of those as well, and then we have another one that's located more centrally in the county. Between those, we offer accommodations, for people to come on out and rent a shelter house or use one of our 120 electric RV campsites. 21 of them are, beautiful lakeside sites that get gobbled up and reserved real quickly when we open up the camping season. But it's just fun to see people come out and enjoy. Maybe it's just a place one night, or sometimes they're here for a week, or sometimes a little longer.
Sure. This is me being an Iowan, so I hope that you don't take offense to this, but I've always read and seen and heard and said that Minnesota is known as the state with 10,000 lakes. So A, I want to know if you've ever counted them all, and B, how many of those lakes are in Jackson County?
Well, that's a good question. We've got a lot of the lakes in Jackson County. They tend to be a little more shallower than some of your bigger lakes, but still offer a lot of the fishing activities and boating activities that one would kind of think about. But no, Minnesota, when they say the land of 10,000 lakes, it's substantially bigger than that number. And those riders that will be showing up, they'll learn the exact number when they get here.
Okay, all right, but we don't have to actually physically count them all, right?
No, that will not be required.
I know when we came through on the ride inspection, AP and I, when we hit the border, we thought, okay, we're going to count the lakes, and we immediately either forgot to count or lost track because there's just so many beautiful things to see along the way.
And a lot of, it's going to be a lot of new things to see, but I know when you had came earlier, yes, it's going to be, just even the farmland that's going to be, the corn is going to be just so much taller than earlier, and
right.
It's going to be a good time.
And I'm not sure if you know, but do you have a good idea on what is planned at Brown Park when we pedal through?
So, we expect that some early riders will get there, maybe as early as 8 or 9 in the morning. But we are kind of the midday stop, and really have some activities lined up for people to just kind of, it is the shortest route, I believe, 41 point something miles. And so no, there'll be opportunities to come in, and I know we briefly touched upon it, but there'll be a tire dipping opportunity around Pearl Lake, and we'll be able to do that. There'll be some entertainment. There'll be we'll be lined with a lot of food vendors, and I do also want to mention, there'll be opportunity for pictures too for, the big Welcome to Minnesota road sign. We will have that at our location as well, and so it's just going to be kind of swing on in and just kind of refuel and take a break and meet some of us Minnesotans.
I think last I heard there's going to be over 20 food vendors, so there'll be plenty of opportunities for you to have lunch or to experience Minnesota nice. And have you worked on or have you heard if there'll be any Minnesota specialty craft beers there?
We are working with we're working with one vendor to provide some of that, and so there'll be some of that options coming up. In the process of getting them all kind of put together. We do have a website that we are starting to put a few of them on. We've got, I think, about 9 of them listed as of right now, but we've got, before all is said and done, we'll be right at that, probably that 2022 number.
That's great. Okay, so let's say people come into Brown Park, they thoroughly enjoy themselves, they see how beautiful the park is, they want to come back, later in the year or maybe next year and bring the RV and the family. Do you have like either contact info or a website or a place that they can go to kind of check it out?
Yeah, we do. Currently, our website is operational, and we've got a www.co.jackson.mn.us, and that brings you right to the government website. Then you scroll down, and we've got camping reservations right on there. We're in year 2 taking camping reservations, and that has kind of really gone well. And for those that want to talk to somebody over the phone and set up their camping experience, we can do that as well.
Excellent. And we'll also put that link in our show notes so people can reference it. I guess the only question I didn't ask you, have you ever been to Iowa, or do you have any Iowa connections? This might be throwing you under the bus, but let's just hear it. Let's hear it.
No, I've mainly it's been across the border into Spirit Lake. I've had some family members and stuff like that, and so it's real close there. But all good, all good.
Awesome. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for spending some time with us on this podcast. And I'll speak on behalf of all the RAGBRAI riders. We're really, really excited to break out of Iowa for a brief amount of time to come visit your beautiful state.
Yeah, no, we're looking forward to it. And I guess if I could just add another kind of shout out to one other park that we have is just north of Jackson. And it's kind of for some of those that are maybe into more off-road biking. And it's a single track that was created a few years ago. It's 5 miles of natural surface single track. And what's special about that park is it's situated just above the Des Moines River. And it's in a bunch of oaks and native trees, something a little different than just, the openness of, normal bike road traveling. And so for those that maybe have a little interest in that too, look us up sometime.
And what's the name of that park?
That one's called Belmont Park, just north of Jackson, and yep.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Jeremy, and we'll see you in a matter of weeks.
Thank you.
All right, listeners, Randolph is joining us, another Minnesotan. Hello, Randolph.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. And I guess I don't even know if you're a born and bred Minnesotan, but you certainly are right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, I live in Eden Prairie. I grew up in the South, though. So, not the South of Minnesota, the South of the United States.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, if you are in, did you say Egan?
Eden Prairie.
Yeah. Do you have an idea of what the cycling culture is like there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this part of the metro area has got quite a few gravel trails, and has quite a few. It's probably got the Twin Cities metro area's best mountain bike centers. So there's plenty to ride.
Yeah.
In the Eden Prairie area. So.
And do you have a particular place that you'd highly recommend people go check out?
Well, if you're into mountain biking, you can. I would recommend either Lebanon Hills, and that is. I'm trying to think of where that is. It's in the kind of the southern, the Shakopee Savage area, which is kind of South Metro, and another good area around that same place is the Murphy Hanrahan Park. It's those are both epic mountain biking destinations in the Twin Cities. Probably the two most diverse opportunities in the Twin Cities. You've got everything from green trails to double black diamond trails at the Lebanon Hills. So yeah, it's pretty great.
Okay, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
And as you know, you are going to be part of making history when RAGBRAI comes through or crosses the border into Minnesota. With that said, do you personally have any connections to Iowa, or please tell me you've been to Iowa?
Yeah, I've been to Iowa. I don't have any family connections. I do have personal connections. I have friends that live in Iowa because I did ag policy for a long time at the federal level, and we work really closely with Iowa farmers and also the congressional delegation in Iowa, because Minnesota and Iowa obviously have very similar crop profiles. So there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration between the two states. So. When
we were doing the ride inspection for RAGBRAI, we knew when we crossed the border into Minnesota, but the crops looked exactly the same as far as corn and soybeans.
Yeah, that's what you get on that border. So,
yeah,
for sure.
Okay, so you are part of an organization called Explore Minnesota. Can you give us kind of a highlight of what Explore Minnesota is?
Explore Minnesota is a state tourism agency. So our job is to market the state. We only have one client. It's the state of Minnesota. So, that's really our role, is to convince people to visit here, to convince people to move here, and to convince businesses to locate here. So we do a lot of outdoor recreation programming because Minnesota has a ton of those opportunities across the various regions of the state, and so we do a lot of that. So everything from fishing, boating, cycling, hiking, back, you name it. So that's the role of Explore, is to convince people to come here, basically.
Okay. And somebody in maybe your organization or somewhere talked Matt Phippen, our ride director, into coming to Minnesota. So if you cross the border while you're on RAGBRAI, then you are doing what you're supposed to do in Minnesota.
Yeah. We'll be happy to welcome the thousands of people that come from Iowa to Minnesota.
Excellent.
For that day.
And your title is Deputy Director of Outdoor Recreation. And what exactly do you do?
My role is to support Minnesota's outdoor recreation industry. And do that by developing resources for that industry, for building community, so a bunch of outreach and engagement with the outdoor recreation community, as well as really telling the story of outdoor recreation in Minnesota and the impact that it has on everyone's life here in the state.
So we already know, the route in and the route out when we come with RAGBRAI, but I'm hoping that you have a couple of either top tips or favorite places within the state of Minnesota that you think riders should come back and explore after July.
Yeah, for sure. It depends on what they like to ride. And so if you're really into gravel bike riding, which a lot of people are nowadays, and both Iowa and Minnesota have really good gravel opportunities. But if you're into that, I would ask people to check out the southeast portion of Minnesota, the kind of La Crescent, Winona, that part of the state that it borders Wisconsin and Iowa. We have fantastic gravel. It's one of the reasons why we'll be hosting for the next 2 years. We'll be hosting the Gravel National Championships in La Crescent, Minnesota. Those happen in September of each year, so we're really looking forward to that. They brought it here because they said Minnesota has the champagne of gravel. So
nice.
if you're into that, if you're all about mountain biking, like I said, the Twin Cities, that's great at mountain biking. But if you want to go a bit further north, I would say Cuyuna is world class, and Duluth. Obviously, Duluth so the International Mountain Biking Association does ratings for trail centers. It has globally, there's only 6 gold-rated trail centers in the entire world, and Duluth is one of the 6. It's the only gold in the United States. And so that's definitely worth a trip if you love mountain biking. Finally, if you're into road cycling, which I know a lot of folks who ride RAGBRAI are, the Twin Cities, you can't beat the Twin Cities. Twin Cities consistently rated the top big cities for cycling in the nation. St. Paul it's usually Minneapolis is either first or second, and St. Paul is in the top 5. So
wow.
They're always way up there, and it's largely due to infrastructure. We have a ton of trails, you can bike anywhere in the cities, basically. And so it's really great. So those, depending on what kind of biking you like to do, those are the areas that I would certainly recommend checking out.
And then I'll add to that because I just got back from what we called a tri-state bike tour, and we were in Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, and we were on the Root River Trail, which was in it went through several communities, but we stayed in Lanesboro one night, and that is amazing. It's a paved trail. It's not flat, but it's just so beautiful.
Yeah, I was going to, you mentioned Root River Trail. I was going to say, I mean, Lanesboro is the first thing that pops in my head because it's a fantastic little, your basic Midwestern, a main street, small town with a fantastic trail that runs right through it. And you've got places you can stop for dinner or to stay overnight. And it's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Brown Park is going to be our destination when we come through on RAGBRAI. And I'm assuming that you know a little bit about Brown Park, and I was hoping that you could share whatever you know.
Yeah, well, I've spent quite a bit of time in southern Minnesota, and I've been to Brown Park a few times, and I mean it's a great little municipal park. It's sandwiched between it's very Minnesota because it's basically surrounded by water. I mean. That's perfectly Minnesota, and you've got Loon Lake on one side, and then I think you've got Pearl Lake on the other side, and then right through the middle of the park you got a creek that flows between the two lakes.
Oh wow!
So you've got plenty of water, and it's got there's biking opportunities, hiking, camping. You camp overnight there, obviously, and fishing and boating, and so you can't really ask for much more out of a park. And so it's a great spot to come to for sure.
And for sure, if there's people out there, especially if they have RVs or they're tent camping, they maybe spend some time in Iowa, they can just pop right up because it's so close to the border.
Oh yeah, I think they've got plenty of RV spots at Brown for you to check out, and so yeah, it's a great stop on the trip.
I want to get into if people want to find out more information about Explore Minnesota, or if you have website or Facebook. But first, you also have a podcast. So tell us about that.
I do. It's called Explore Minnesota More. It's a joint venture between Explore Minnesota, which is our tourism agency in the state, as well as our Department of Natural Resources. And so our subject matter is broad in scope, but we basically focus on the people, places, and things that make up Minnesota's outdoor recreation ecosystem. So we'll have an episode on a specific park. We'll have an episode on a local business in the outdoor recreation space. We'll have an episode about a local outdoor recreation dignitary. I've got a couple episodes coming up about a few outdoor recreation inventions that were born in Minnesota, like the rollerblades and water skiing. And so yeah, it's pretty broad. If you're into Minnesota and outdoor recreation, that's kind of our target audience. And if you've ever wanted to visit Minnesota, I think we're up to like 26 episodes now. So there's plenty of content there for you to learn all the kind of maybe some insider tips and tricks on where you want to go and what you might want to do in Minnesota. So yeah, we started that last year, and we put out 2 episodes a month every other Thursday, and it's Explore Minnesota. It's in Spotify, it's in iTunes, it's in Apple. Just look up Explore Minnesota More, and we should be there. So yeah, it's really fun to do.
Cool. And then, so any podcast platform that you are already on, especially if you're listening to this podcast, you know how to listen to podcasts. So just go ahead and find Explore Minnesota More. And then how about some, if people want to find out more about Explore Minnesota?
Yeah, we have a big kind of public facing website for anyone who wants to have adventures in Minnesota and needs a little bit of some ideas on where they need to go. So we have itineraries and articles and all the fun stuff that you want to do here, and that's exploreminnesota.com. You can pretty much plan your whole trip by going to that website and checking it out. So it's a great resource.
Thank you. Good. And Randolph, will you be around when we all come through during RAGBRAI?
Oh man, I hope so. I'm gonna try to. It's always been on my bucket list to ride RAGBRAI. So I'd love to have a chance to see it when it comes into to Minnesota for the first time in history, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast, and hopefully we see you in a matter of, only a couple more weeks.
I know, it's crazy how fast it's going by.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Hi, Erik.
Hey.
Are you coming to us live from Minnesota?
I am. I'm up in Minneapolis at the Bike and Men HQ.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast to share with our listeners a little bit more about Minnesota.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. So you said you were in Minneapolis, and I think we all know that Minneapolis is a huge area, especially with St. Paul connected to it. But can you tell us a little bit about the cycling culture that you've experienced?
Yeah. So I think that Minneapolis, or the Twin Cities overall, and maybe even just Minnesota overall, has some of the friendlier cycling culture in the country. And I think that that's largely result of some really key investments a couple decades ago, such as the Midtown Greenway, which I personally think of as it's the best single piece of bike as transportation infrastructure in the country.
And what exactly
is that?
Just
north of our office. So it's an old sunken rail corridor that I think for people who are listening who do bike, the best way to explain it is probably it is the fastest way across Minneapolis by far, and it's on a bike, but it's essentially a highway for bikes, and that runs through the north side of South Minneapolis, and there's been just a ton of real estate investment along it. So there's lots of restaurants and apartment complexes and condos all along it, and the whole thing is gorgeous. It's going to be the longest urban pollinator corridor in the U.S. here. The folks who manage that one got a fantastic federal grant for that.
Wow, that is really
just gorgeous.
Cool. I don't think I've been on it. I've been biking in the Minneapolis area, but I don't think I've found that gem.
Well, if you're ever in town, you can definitely borrow a bike from us, and I'd love to take you on a tour.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so besides that, is there any particular place, I mean, you can, go anywhere in the state that you would highly recommend people go to bike?
Well, especially for the audience listening in on this, not too far north of Iowa is one of my favorite rail trail corridors, which is the Root River Trail. Mm-hmm. So that goes through a bunch of small towns, including Lanesboro, which has kind of adopted the bike as the theme of the town. There are bike-themed bed and breakfasts, there are bike-themed restaurants. And not only is that trail fantastic, there's just some really wonderful gravel riding in that area because it's in the Driftless, which for those in your audience who maybe don't know, the Driftless is a region. It's part of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Iowa. That it feels a lot more like upstate New York in terms of topography. Mm-hmm. And it was basically the glaciers never hit it. So it just has tons of ups and downs, and really it's just lush with ferns and oak trees, and it's a really, really special place.
Mm-hmm. And I mentioned when I was talking with Randolph that I just spent the weekend in actually on a tri-state tour, and we went to Lanesboro and stayed there and utilized the Root River Trail. And I can attest to that. It was so beautiful.
It really is. And one of the cool things about it that we're getting to work on is we wrote a letter of support for some federal and state funding to actually connect that all the way to the river. So eventually, someday, hopefully in the not too distant future, you'll be able to ride the full Root River Trail to La Crescent, go over on a bridge, and get onto Wisconsin's fantastic trail system on the other side there in La Crosse.
Ah, and we did ride our bikes to La Crescent and then across the river to La Crosse. So hopefully in my lifetime that trail exists and I can go do it again.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's awesome when we can have these trail networks connect up, especially across state lines, and you get to really go really as far as you want to, and experience just everything that the Upper Midwest has to offer. Which again, I think it's one of the more friendly cycling cultures in the country. Just very welcoming people. folks who want to, make sure that about that secret swim spot off the trail, or where the good rest stop is to grab the really good sandwich or whatever it is. But just really friendly people up here.
Yep, I can agree with that. Okay, so you are part of the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and what you stand for?
Yeah, so the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota, and sometimes we go by Bike MN. We are a nonprofit. We're statewide. We're about 16 years old, a little 16 and a half. And we were founded and still are primarily an educational organization. Okay. So we have a curriculum that's taught K through 8. And every year, 120,000 kids, over 120,000 kids learn how to ride a bike, how to operate traffic safely. And that's taught in every school district in the state. It's actually a statewide mandate here in Minnesota, which is something that we're responsible for and we're very proud of. And then we also do adult learning to ride, and that's primarily recent immigrants, refugees, folks who just culturally didn't have access to learning how to ride a bike, probably like you and I did as kids. But that reliable transportation, it's incredibly important for them. In fact, it's the single most important determinant of whether or not they're going to succeed in our country is if they kind of have reliable transportation, they're able to get to work, school, drop their kids off. And that's the main thing that our organization does. We also do some advocacy. Our staff organization, we primarily focus on state level legislation. And that's included things like the Idaho Stop, hands-free laws, the ability to legally use studded tires, which are more important here than in some other states in the country to get through the winter. And then we have chapters all over the state. We have chapters down in Rochester, Mankato, up in Duluth, a lot of small towns like Fergus Falls, which for those who are familiar with the League of American Bicyclists, bike-friendly business program, Fergus Falls has like as many as DC. They're kind of nuts for bikes up there. And those chapters, they do a lot in their own communities around, how to make the corridor safer, especially for kids getting to school and for folks getting to work. But really just trying to promote people getting out of their cars and, enjoying a type of transportation that lets you get to know your neighbors a little bit better.
Oh, yeah. So you're definitely the sister organization to the Iowa Bicycle Coalition that, is based out of Des Moines here in our state.
Yeah, really excited to ride with them on RAGBRAI this year. But
you started talking about Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota and being able to teach kids how to ride bikes. And it made me think of a story. When I worked for the Iowa Bicycle Coalition, one of the things I did was go into driver's ed classes, and I would teach just a 45-minute class on how you handle when you're 16 years old behind the wheel of a car and you come upon a bicyclist on the street. And it blew my mind. My first question I would ask the classes would be, raise your hand if you actually own a bike. And it would be maybe half the kids. And then when I would say, raise your hand if you actually ride a bike, it would be maybe 10 kids out of the entire class. So their experience is so much different than how I grew up, where, a bike was the only way I could get anywhere, to the pool and to practice and all that good stuff. So kudos to you guys in Minnesota for teaching that.
Yeah, no, it's super important. And when we think back on the childhood that we had, where bikes really just, it meant that freedom to get to the pool, to get to friends' houses, to the parks, the school. That's what, that's the, I think at the core, that's what the mission of our organization is, kids should have all the freedom that we had growing up, and that they should be able to explore their world and develop as little humans. And they live here too, right? They should have access to everything that enriches their lives.
Right. And then they know what it feels like when you're on a bicycle. So then when they, grow up and start driving, they understand that that's actually a human being on a bicycle and not just a, distraction or somebody preventing them from getting to where they want to go faster.
Oh, no, definitely. And that's, there's a lot of need, I think, in the country right now for people to see each other as humans.
Yes, exactly.
And not an obstacle to them getting to, work on time or that sort of thing. Is that, we're all trying to get somewhere, and we want to do that safely.
Yeah. Wow. What a great organization. And it looks like you are communications manager. So what are you working on, or what is the organization working on as far as advocacy or just things that are happening this year?
So I sometimes describe the role that I play here as getting to be the person who gets to tell the stories of those folks learning how to ride a bike, or the community benefits of being able to have more people who are, again, experiencing their community outside of a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot harder to form a friendship through two windshields than it is to ride past somebody or walk past somebody as you're grabbing coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is what I try to do with my job is make sure that people understand the purpose of our organization, the mission, and the benefits of creating a Minnesota, or hopefully upper Midwest, or the U.S. that prioritizes people being able to form those kind of connections. And so I get to kind of have my fingers in every part of our organization. And on the advocacy front, we just finished our legislative session. It was a really complicated one for reasons that I'm not going to get into on this podcast, but closely tied electorates create some unique challenges.
Mm-hmm.
But even within that, we were able to get some really record-setting safe routes to school funding
cool.
during a challenging budget year, and also make a lot of progress on kind of conversations around how do we prioritize the way that we fund transportation infrastructure. Are we funding ourselves towards a more connected, more vibrant future, or are we continuing to fund ourselves into an increasing liability hole of statewide highway? We have the fourth largest statewide highway system in the country, which is kind of disproportionate to both our size and also our population. So lots of different topics.
Right. Riders will be crossing the border into Minnesota and going to Brown Park, which hopefully you have been there before, but this is like a history-making day. From your experience, any thoughts or tips or must-see things that we should tell listeners when we are in Minnesota for just a brief amount of time?
So definitely stop by we'll have a tent there. We'll be handing out koozies and say hi to us. We'd love to get you involved. We've got lots of other rides throughout the year that we hope folks will join us on. So come learn about those. And down in Jackson at Brown Park, RAGBRAI this year is like it is any other year. It's going to be a hot one. So definitely take that midpoint opportunity to go jump in a lake, which is about, I think, the most Minnesota thing you could do in a hot day.
And we'd be jumping into, is it Pearl Lake?
Well, there's a couple lakes that it looks like you have an option of, but Brown Park is, the county park is on Loon Lake.
I'm sure there's plenty of people that are listening to this podcast that do RAGBRAI that actually live in Minnesota. So is there anything you want to promote or tell us some contact information so you can find out more about the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota?
Sure, yeah. So our website is bikeamend.org. We're on all the social media platforms. And we have, again, some really fantastic rides throughout the year. For folks who are riding RAGBRAI in July this year, we'd encourage them to look into both Biking Around Minnesota, which is our only multi-day ride. This year it's up in the Brainerd Lakes area. And it's pretty much bike touring made easy. We do all the planning and logistics for you, and you just kind of get to ride and show up. And then really kind of our tentpole ride is the Twin Cities Bike Tour. So for folks who saw the recent People for Bikes ranking, we once again kind of scored at the top of the charts. And we proudly like to proclaim the Twin Cities as the best bike metro in the country.
Oh, wow.
And this year we're showcasing some pieces of infrastructure that are brand new, and they really are. They're things that could happen in pretty much any community, no matter what the size. So we hope that folks will join us on that. Lots of rest stops, fully supported, and it's, again, just a really fun atmosphere.
BikeMN.org is the website to get all this information, but for sure we want to stop by. And will you be there, Erik, at the tent?
I will be, as will Michael Wojcik, who's our executive director, and some of our board members.
All right. Well, we look forward to seeing you, Erik, and to coming to Brown Park.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, listeners, that is it for today. We want to thank you for tuning in to listen to the Just Go Bike podcast. If you would like to contact Murph and AP with a comment about the podcast, or maybe even you have a topic in mind, you can reach us at justgobikepodcast@gmail.com. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and watch our intros on YouTube. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast, especially if you're a fan. That is going to do it for this week. Until next time,
Just go bike.
theme song by Ryan Steer, logo by Suzanne Milosevic, produced by Kathy Murphy, social media by Andrea Parrott, intro by Pumpkin. Until next time, just go bike.